brother Sean Fackler,
Dude,
my
thank you.
bro.
Thank you, Harm.
Thanks for coming on, brother. Xiao Wu Ding
Hey,
Xing, my
man.
friend.
What a pleasure. Shang Jing
Yeah,
Shang.
yeah. I recently seen the spelling because for the longest time, I did not know what Xiao Wu. I didn't even really know what I was saying, right? Besides the Wu in
Yep.
there, right? Um, the Wu, I heard it's something that stands for like the martial honor. What it means is keep martial honor in the highest esteem or spirit, right? What me
Yep.
and Fackler here are talking about is and we are together in a school of traditional Shaolin Kung Fu for a long time, man. I'm coming on like 20 years now, actually, but not when I started with Chansu, but with Sifu Belinsky about 20 years ago. So I
Yep.
and you already so you're probably longer because by the time I was doing that, you were already probably already like a gold sash or something.
That's
But
a long time ago,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Yep.
So I just what I want to get to say is I recently saw the spelling someone said it with the chats with Chansu, and what we're saying is, keep the martial honor in its highest esteem or spirit. But I saw the word Shen, Shawu Jing Shen, like Shen,
Yes.
right? So Shen, I looked that up, and that is spirit. It's basically that word means spirit. So when you're saying like the martial honor, the highest esteem or spirit, that Shawu Jing Shen, and I know that's also related to the Jing Jing. Are you familiar with like Jing or what?
No, not that particular character, but I did translate this one time with my mother just so I knew I was doing the proper tones. Because, we don't do the proper Chinese tones in class. We say it, but the four tones in Chinese.
No, no.
So basically, each word you could say it like shao, shao,
Wow.
shao. And those are all
Four
three
different tones when you're
different.
using
There's
wow, I didn't even know that. And
so
in
that's a whole nother thing.
expression, wow,
But
cool.
yeah, go on, man.
Yeah, but so the Shen and Wu Jing Shen, I was also reading about how that Shen, Jing Shen, um, there is the famous Shenlong in Chinese mythology, meaning Long would be the dragon. So Shenlong was the spirit dragon. So I was reading
Got
about the spirit dragon and pretty interesting how that word Shen relates to spirit, heaven, or something like in a high esteem like that. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of cool. And I also never really broke down the meaning of that salute and the greet, in each word.
hmm
So there's
hmm
I seen the Wu, the Jing, Jing, which I believe is some kind of essence or something. I'm not too familiar with Jing. And then Shen would be spirit. And I believe the Wu is like martial honor.
One more tidbit about that. When I translated it with my mom, she identified one of the phrases, I forget exact which, but essentially was part of the nationalist Chinese kind of propaganda at that time,
No kidding.
which was basically about raising, the Chinese spirit. And
Mhm.
there is some connection to Sun Yat Sen, who was a very popular politician, writer, and philosopher that was the basically opposing Chinese party to the communists at that time. So these were the guys that got sent that fled to Taiwan, but they were the ones that were associated with maintaining the ancient martial arts practices.
Uh,
And the mainland China,
I heard about
you
this.
know, is kind of understood to have watered down the
Course,
ancient
because of the exactly. Even like
tradition.
if you look at the Shaolin Kung Fu at the actual Shaolin Temple, it's
It's
very
wushu now.
yeah, yeah.
It's all wushuized. Yeah.
Wushu would be the word, right? And you see that, and not to, hate on Wushu but when it
No,
comes
no, no.
to all that stuff, brother, that stuff made like traditional Shaolin not a part of MMA's curriculum, which is understandable, but basic skill in Shaolin should not be undermined. Horse stance, just stances, punches, and
Mhm.
training the stances, proper kicks. I learned some mixed martial artists, popular in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, didn't know how to do a proper roundhouse. And my man was really high ranked up there. And I was just like, huh. So, but when we do roundhouse, bro, there's a big science. We do like three, four different stances just in a roundhouse. You're in your horse, you're not hanging horse, come. So there's like three, there's even like a twist in it. So there's a big science to how basic skill can teach you how to move, punch, and kick. So to have that
Trying
complete
to start an
fluidity,
internet controversy, man.
yeah, yeah. Well, I see a lot of I don't like to see people beating up old Tai Chi masters because they want to disprove Kung Fu, and it happens. And first off, what in your right mind do you think why you would put like a man in the prime of his life against like a 70-year-old man? Like, you just stop beating up old people in the first place. Like, let's just not like, come on, is this WWE? Like, you really think that this man's gonna like wushu and put Tai Chi through a wall or something, bro? Don't like first, like, either way. That's it.
They
Just
kind of missed the point, didn't they? The
yeah.
martial spirit was not held in high esteem with them. Let's just say that. Wow.
Well, that's what's cool about our school and the way we practice Shaolin. It's very traditional, and I'm able to continue it even though it's in a modern age, and you have gyms like martial arts gyms now. Instead of you don't have karate schools, you don't have things that are popular like in the 80s. Back then, it was like going to dojos and kung fu schools fighting each other. That was big in the 80s, but now I feel like you're looking at the epitome of fighters in the prime of martial arts development, because they're all now just honing their skills together with all this knowledge throughout the world, and it's just forming a real, almost like a gladiator school. So I really think martial arts in that form is definitely advancing. um but we want to talk about other than Shaolin, which always is a great thing to talk about. But I have a book coming out called Silver, and it features a Shaolin monk, and it features um just the understanding of using the element silver and how it can connect to the spirit world, which we're also familiar with in the Western movies of werewolves being killed with silver bullets. The original Bram Stoker's Dracula, in fact, is how you kill Dracula was with, I believe, a silver stake, but it became a stake through the heart. But if you look at a lot of different movies, they still use silver. I forget what I saw, like I forget which one, but some vampire movies still do silver. Um, Geronimo, who I write about in later chapters in Silver, in this series, um, was known for using silver amulets as protection charms. A lot of talismans, Taoist talismans, are silver amulets. Um, Sean, you said that you're like what, give me a rundown basically, because you were going to help elaborate on silver. We're going to talk a little bit about it. Can you give me just like a little bit of rundown on like how you're saying it's like a modern day alchemy and
That's right. That's right. So I went to school as a material scientist, and that used to be called metals and ceramics, just not 50 years ago. And I continued to study and practice using metals in engineering applications. And I literally became a licensed metallurgist. So it's kind of wild. I am the modern alchemist and mixing metals for all these different applications. I even had a company called Lone Silver,
No.
and that, yeah, so that was because I met this collaborator who would literally grow single crystal silver boules. And maybe you know, silver is the most conductive metal
Right, right.
in the periodic table. So what he did was cut these into a wire. And basically, because the crystal has no imperfections, it reaches the theoretical limit of conductivity and thus makes very clean electrical signals going down this wire. So that is one of the amazing properties of silver.
So
And yeah,
it's a spool. He grows crystals, and
yeah,
then he turns that crystal into by spooling it
he
like
cuts discs from the boule. Imagine it's like a cylinder, and
it's
he cuts
pure
discs
silver, or like how
pure, like
pure silver. Right,
99.9,
right,
at least 5 nines, which is very
right.
pure. And then imagine taking the disc and cutting it in a spiral and then unraveling it into a wire. That was,
Uh,
yeah,
that
super high tech
sounds
stuff.
very high tech. It
Yeah.
sounds like there could be a lot of future technology coming from something like this.
Yep.
Um, and I like
Also, yep, high thermal conductivity. So yeah, it's a very exceptional material.
right. That's what I talk about in some of the book I'm writing. I always do some stupid ass shit. I got my alarm on. Let me
And
turn my phone off, dude.
good idea.
This is why I kind of uh started diving in with silver because it's easily you could see and read about it. It has the highest thermal conductivity and electrical conductivity, and it can transfer it to another object that way, right? So if you get pure silver and you put an ice cube onto it, it'll melt right away because of the heat that's stored inside the silver, like quicker than any other element. So I ended up getting this silver ring here, and it's got like an ohm symbol on it. Oh, you see this light is just busting right ever bright.
Mhm.
I tested it out by just putting it on an ice cube, like, and all the heat that's in my hand stays into this, and so this it just easily puts the little, the ohm symbol on the ice cube. That is kind of where we're getting at on how silver affects the etherical world. Because if it's electrical energy that it's being able to store, um, you know, electromagnetic energy is considered like chi energy anyways, right? Like there's
Mhm.
they think that the earth's grid, it's an electromagnetic energy, right? So if we're and if these spools and these wires can conduct like in such a way where it can pass, if we can harness the technology to use electromagnetic energy, then it could probably be, transition into, what would be known as the ether, or what alchemists work with as mercury, um, quicksilver. Do you have any um, connections or anything with mercury and quicksilver, like anything like that?
Basically, it was the alchemists who were working with something called cinnabar.
Cinnabar sounds familiar.
This is an ore, and it makes a beautiful red pigment.
Hmm.
And basically, it looks just like blood. So they would paint in their paintings, they would use this on lacquered. Um, the Chinese would use it on these lacquered cases. And if you look at it, it is red as blood. It looks like fresh blood. And it was regarded, it was very expensive, first of all. very expensive ink. It was very poisonous because it was composed of mercury and sulfur. And basically, it was regarded as blood and thus life, and the Chinese regarded it as eternity.
So that
And
was
what happened?
right. They were drinking that mixture, is what it was.
So, if you heat up cinnabar, like imagine these big chunks of it, and let's say it was all wet and you were trying to dry it out. When you heat it up to a particular temperature, it will react with the air. Liquid mercury will literally start dropping out of the bottom. And when you open up the furnace or the oven, there will literally just be liquid mercury sitting at the bottom. And so what I think they thought, they were like, whoa, this cinnabar thing is literally like blood, right? It like looks like blood when it's made into the ink. And when they saw this liquid mercury coming out at the bottom, and regarding this material as a very precious material, and
Why was the
and
liquid mercury coming out of the bottom of what? Like a vessel that the was in?
because the rock that was the cinnabar is a rock, it's like an
Right.
ore, it's literally made of a mercury atom and a sulfur atom. It's
So
literally
making
inside that ore is mercury. So when it reacts with the air at high temperature, it would literally come out because the sulfur would attach to the oxygen, and then the liquid mercury would just drop out. So I think they were looking at this thing that looked like blood, and then when they did that in the furnace, or they would put it in a mortar and pestle, and if they would grind it with a copper mortar and pestle into a powder, imagine you were making the ink, and if you had a copper mortar and pestle, and sometimes they would put acid, like think acetic acid, vinegar, right? You're making your ink. Literally, as you're grinding this, liquid mercury would just start coming out of this thing. So you're making the ink that looks like blood, and you literally have
mercury out of it.
there's just mercury coming out of it because the mercury is reacting. There's a chemical reaction occurring.
Straight up ancient alchemy. Like
These alchemists were
uh,
grinding stuff, they were burning stuff, and literally mercury was just
so they
dropping
were
out of
thinking
it,
that
man.
like coming out of blood or something, and then that they can get life from that or something.
Yeah,
Because
I think they thought it was like it was like the component
like the philosophy.
behind blood. They were like, that's life. Like the same stuff comes out of my skin. So we found the
So
even
that's
more
why they would
atomic
drink.
thing.
That's why they would drink mercury
So
because
then they would think that that could give you immortality, right? Because
probably it makes
look,
sense.
it's
That's actually really good. Like I've never heard that theory, but it's very logical. It's a logical theory because when doing research, especially if you what is that, the terracotta army, you see
okay.
a lot of these ancient emperors were known to have drank mercury. They find it in in their vessel, their goblets and stuff that they're
Yes,
buried with.
the coffin. I heard
So
Chinese emperor.
yeah, so they had a belief, and obviously they weren't getting it themselves. They were going to the Taoists that were out and finding these elixirs of immortality. So the Taoists were the ones that were giving this idea of, and you got to think that these Taoists, especially in Shaolin, the Buddhists, they were basically your modern or your ancient doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Also philosophers in the sense of
Researchers,
psychology, herbalists, all of
right?
it. It basically that was medicine. So they were alchemists. So that's where, and a lot of those teachings come from India too, the Buddhist teachings, but I like how Shaolin blended the Buddhist teaching with the Taoist teaching to create Chan, or modern day Zen, which is really a really cool philosophy that I kind of practice myself with just the middle course. And that's Chan, for anybody that doesn't know, is the term where Zen came from. And it originated in Shaolin Temple, if I'm not mistaken. Chan was part of the system that was created supposedly by monk Damo, who came from India, um, which is pretty cool. Have you ever heard of the samurai Miyamoto something? Like Miyamoto, he's like a famous samurai who's got like 60 bodies. Like dude was like the real warlord deal, like back in the feudal times of the samurais. And dude was a straight up samurai, right? But he had the most beautiful paintings that he would paint. And I noticed one of them was Damo. I was like, what? He did a Damo. He had like two Damo paintings. So that just shows you that even the ancient samurai, um, had reverence of Damo. Even like the modern day Zen, the word Zen, all that comes from the Shaolin Temple, which is pretty interesting.
Wow. Supposedly, Damo, when he opened the Shaolin Temple, guess what? He painted the columns that same red color.
Fuck yeah.
Uh, the same red color from the cinnabar.
Have you
It's
ever?
called vermilion. It's called vermilion.
Wow.
So it's very connected, man. The cinnabar with the vermilion, the red color, and the elixir of life, the mercury, the
Um,
quicksilver coming from this thing that looks like blood because it's life.
so you're
It's
saying like that entrance thing, that like it's like a circle in that famous, and the that red entrance thing in Shaolin Temple, or whatever you're talking about, or
they painted a lot of things red. To me, the columns come to mind.
oh
They
yeah,
have
those two
these
pillar things. But
big
yeah, I
red
know
pillars.
exactly what you're
Yep,
talking about. Wow.
painted with that same thing. He Bodhidharma knew it too, man. He was intrigued by that idea, right? Immortality
Yeah,
and the vermilion.
well, this is a crazy thing with Bodhidharma, exactly because in Japan, they were where Damo's Chan became Zen. They have what's called is the Damo dolls. You ever see a Damo doll?
No, no.
Dude, Damo dolls, right? So they're basically like a little doll, but it's all Damo, just his head and like his red shawl, right? No arms
Okay.
or legs. And it's because the myth is, I think it was like when he was in the cave, or there is a myth like in Japan about Damo, why they have the Damo dolls is because he went in such deep meditation that his arms and limbs withered away. And he just became this like little doll thing, right? And one of the
Whoa.
yeah, yeah, and that's the story of the Damo doll in Japan. If you ever see what a Damo doll is, it's just like a little, yeah, it looks like Damo kind of like it's shaped like him, but it's like a little doll with a head. And the story is his limbs withered away, but I believe it was with some kind of water or something, and some kind of mantra, that with the water and the mantra, he was able to come back to life or some. This is
Wow.
just a myth, but somehow it got correlated to Damo. And in Shaolin, you don't hear about that story. You hear more the story with him going into cave and then gazing at the wall for like 9 years or something, removing his eyelids, staring at a wall until the monk, I forget his name, there's the monk that came over to him to get him to come back in the temple, right? Um, I forget his name, but there's the famous Shaolin. Um, here's the prayer hands. They do the one-handed prayer, right? And that's
Yeah.
because the monk Shan, I believe, uh, was his name.
Mm.
He cut his arm off so that Damo would come back and teach them in the temple. And this is when he seen the devotion that this guy had, cut his arm off to get them to come back because they denied him entrance. He went and stared at the Shaolin Temple for 9 years in a cave, removed his eyelids, and apparently that like put a hole in the wall. So they all knew he was a really important monk. But then by that time, he didn't want to come back to the temple. And the one guy cut his arm off. That's why you see Shaolin monks with the one hand um, doing the reverence. And that's just kind of the myth. There's a lot of people who don't even think Damo existed, and Shaolin martial arts. There's been always been martial arts. There's been war in China for a very long time. Obviously, there's been combat, but there is a lot of people who just want the source of literature that historically can document things and kind of just throw away all that myth and cutting my eyelids off and stuff.
Yeah, but Damo was a prince in India before he even came to China.
Through that, you could look up the historical significance of that.
So
You
was
can find it,
Shakyamuni Buddha.
right?
Shakyamuni Buddha was a prince
And not only that, he is the 27th disciple of Shakyamuni, I believe.
thereabouts. Yep.
So I'm gonna just kind of go back into silver.
So I did do some research and can basically kind of surmise, the importance of silver in the ancient times because, first of all, it was shiny.
Yeah.
And back in the day, back in the ancient times,
The shiniest because it can hold the most light and then transition
it
it, right?
can hold the most light. So that's where you get that idea of silver light. But back in the day, they thought the eyeballs emitted light. That was one of the theories. Like, how do you see? Is there light coming into your eye or is there light coming out of your eye?
Mhm.
So, all that to say, in the ancient mind, the silver could hold light, right? It could hold it like that, which, you know, there's the lightness, the good, and then there's the darkness, the bad, right? So the light, the silver being able to hold the light was seen as this good, pure thing, right? Because of that, just that ability alone, right? Then you get into the pure silver's ability to be tarnished easily, right? Its ability to detect poison, aka detect evil,
Yeah.
right? So it becomes sensing power of evil,
So wait,
right?
how was it able to detect poison?
Because it tarnishes when it would come in contact with
Ah,
poison.
interesting.
So the actually the nobles and would use pure silver cutlery such that, right, if you put your spoon in the soup and it tarnished, you would know someone's trying to poison you, right? So they would
Oh, silverware.
silverware, right? But that was something for the kings and the nobles, right?
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's why they used it, so they know if they're getting
So
poisoned.
they do, right? It's like
Oh
I don't even trust my taste tester, right? Get
man.
me the get me the silverware, right? So then it's a detector of evil. It's able to hold pure light, which is a deterrent to evil, darkness, right?
It's
And it has healing properties, right? They knew that if you put the silver compotes on the wound, it wouldn't get infected.
Right. I heard it's an
That,
antibiotic. They use it
yeah,
in medicine. They're using silver in medicine. So what did you say? Silver compo or what? Or
yeah,
like
that's just just a cream, or they would put it in on the bandages. They would put like silver leaf on the bandages.
silver leaf? Oh, you mean just like a real thin type of,
Yeah,
wow.
and that would help prevent infection, and that's an ancient practice
Interesting. Wow, that's probably in traditional Chinese medicine. I
as
see.
well. So they
Oh,
knew they knew to even drink the powder. The Chinese knew to drink
silver,
the powder to get
silver,
the benefit
silver
for
powder.
the silver powder.
Mhm. I know there's like colloidal silver. They've been saying a lot
Same,
about that.
same
Drink,
thing.
huh?
So, and actually, the conductivity, the electrical conductivity, and the shininess, the reflectivity of silver are connected. Because when I don't know, so a material is reflective because when the light comes and interacts with it, if the material can basically spring this light back quickly, it's reflective, right? Like that, the conductivity and the reflectivity are directly connected,
Hmm. Wow.
like in physics.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
like everything's
So
that ability to hold light,
it's
be reflective,
reflected.
electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and even the antimicrobial properties. And it also has chemical properties,
Yeah.
right? And that those have to do with its antimicrobial properties. So I was telling you this before, but that same collaborator I was doing that company with made a cup from one of the bulls. And what he did was if you put whiskey inside the cup, you would start to see bubbles form on the edge. And that's not just because, you know, sometimes when you put water in a cup, right, there's bubble forms. That's because it was in a pressurized tank. So it's releasing the pressure because it was in a pressurized tank. This is different. If you put whiskey in a cup, it doesn't make bubbles in a glass cup. But when you put it in a silver cup, you'll see these bubbles start forming. And if you let it sit there 10, 20, 30 minutes, it'll be smooth like it was aged for 15 years.
That's insane.
So there's these chemical properties in the silver too, and it's not well understood what it's basically a catalyst. Simply said, it's a catalyst, but yeah, very strong chemical properties in silver,
That's crazy.
and not well understood. So at this point, it's still magic, man. No, people have not
Oh,
figured it out.
magic. It is. We'll have to do another talk again too, man.
We got another top sport, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you, man, coming and doing the talk, man. I'll keep you posted about silver. Hopefully, we get this class, our school with Chansu, man.
Yeah, man, we gotta get ready for our blue sesh, man.
Oh, that's
That's what we gotta
crazy.
do.
Yeah, that is true. Wow, man. Cool, brother. Well, Shao Jing Xing, man. Till the
How
next
Jing
talk,
Sheng.
brother.